Hello and welcome to the, I was going to say preview show, but it's really a Phil Parkinson welcoming show since we've got a new manager now. I've got James Hunter from the Chronicle and Phil Smith from the Sunderland.
I thought you were going to say it's a Phil Smith show there. I was very
not
excited.
Not quite a Phil Smith show. Well, it can be if you want. Come on every week, it'd be the Phil Smith show. We'll start though with the season so far. Last time out, Lincoln was disappointing 2-0 defeat, and that was, I suppose, the final nail in Jack's coffin, but probably the place to start. Do you think that was a fair decision?
Well, it depends. If you view that game in isolation, then I would say no. I mean, it was certainly a poor performance and certainly a poor result. But obviously, it was a situation that had been building over a period of weeks, and we'd seen some discontent from fans, and so there was a momentum, and it was getting to the point where it was going to be difficult for Jack to win fans back on side. We've seen that before when fans start to be vocal at matches in their criticisms of a manager. It's always difficult to bring them back on side. So it didn't exactly come as a bolt from the blue when Jack was sacked in the aftermath of that game. Although the timing of it was interesting, obviously on the day of a game, the Grimsby EFL Trophy game.
Phil, do you think it was a surprise or were you expecting it?
Sorry, I think clearly that the disappointment from losing the playoff final had lingered over the summer, and there was that expectation, that desire to show very quickly that was going to be put right. So the position that Sunderland were even going into the Lincoln game, never mind after it, was an okay one by any measurement, but it wasn't a fantastic one, which was what the demand was, where the expectations were. And as James mentioned, I think there was that increase in recognition that it was going to be very difficult to get that unity that the club had last season that was so powerful. You know, the amount of times rescued points and that very powerful force the club had was going. So in that sense, it wasn't a surprise. But hopefully the work that Jack did at this club doesn't get forgotten just because it ended how it did. For what Jack went through as a young manager, particularly in his first 6 months, the things he had to battle through. In terms of the players who didn't come back, all these things, the squad he had to meld together, gets in a great position, and then the Josh Madge difficulties that he had to manage through. So I think it was one of those where I think everyone recognised the tipping point was approaching, but hopefully we can look forward now while also recognising what a extraordinary amount of hard work and commitment Jack put into it. And you know, he came very close to doing something very, very special there, and there's still a lot of very special memories from the days he was here, and hopefully that can be recognised while looking forward and hoping that Phil Parkinson can now take the next step and put the club back in the Championship.
Yeah, the important thing is that Phil Parkinson's now able to build on what Jack did, isn't it, during his time here, because we shouldn't let that work go to waste. Jack did take over here in very, very difficult circumstances after the double relegation. So there was an awful lot of work that had to be done just to get the club in some kind of shape to challenge for promotion last season, which they did till right up to the very last week of the season. Reached Wembley twice, obviously, in the EFL Trophy and then the playoffs, and was just that one game, the playoff final, away from achieving the objective of promotion. So it shouldn't be forgotten in the broader scheme of things.
I think it's fair to say that Jack left Phil with really good foundations to build on. I don't think there'll be any denying that. But what's your first impressions of the new boss? Obviously, we've had the press conference today.
A lot of conviction. Someone who I think clearly is very, very experienced in the game and has had plenty of success, and that you can sense the conviction immediately in his methods, how he carried himself. Someone who has a huge belief that he knows what it takes to succeed in this division. I think that was the thing that came across most. Someone who believes he knows what it takes to get players performing at this level, to win games of football at this level, and winning different types of games at this level, which is something that Sunderland have to do. So yeah, very steely, clearly a lot of self-belief, and I thought he carried himself well.
Do you think that that's what the owners were looking for with this appointment? That they had Jack, who, had a lot of positives, but maybe didn't have the experience, didn't have he'd never taken a team out this division. This time they've clearly earmarked somebody who knows how to get out this division.
It's an interesting scenario, isn't it? I mean, there's only 8 years between the two managers, but there's a world of difference in terms of the number of games that they've taken charge of. Jack was new to managing in English football when he came. You know, very highly rated young coach from Scotland. So he had to make that adaptation to a new league. Phil Parkinson has been there, seen it and done it. He's a course and distance winner in League One. He's won promotion twice from this league. He's also reached the playoffs twice in this league. He's also won League Two promotion and reached a cup final with Bradford City. So he's managed 700 games or so in England, half of them at League One level. So he's got a wealth of experience and he knows what it takes to get a team out of this division. So it will be a different approach. I can understand the logic in going for an appointment, a manager who has been there and seen it and done it and has all those attributes, because the situation that Sunderland are in, they're not in a bad situation at all. You know, only four points away from second place as we speak now, even despite not playing last weekend. So it's not as though Sunderland are in a terrible position and have nothing to lose here. They're in a very, very strong position, really, and it's a question of as we said earlier, finding somebody that can build on the legacy that Jack left.
We talk about stability in football, and that was what Jack, I think it's fair to say, he did bring it, even though he was only here for 15, 16 months. But Phil Parkinson's a manager who has generally stayed in jobs. He was Bradford before Bolton, and he spent generally 3 years at them two clubs. So this could be an appointment for Sunderland where he is actually here for more than one season, which is something we haven't really seen.
Yeah, I think it's obviously been made very clear to Phil that the objective is to win promotion this year. Stuart Donald's been very clear in that, but at the same time he's been handed a 2.5-year contract. So that tells you that the board certainly don't see him as someone who's just here till the end of the season and get promoted or otherwise. They clearly believe he's someone who can improve the football club over a longer period. And as you mentioned, the vast majority of the jobs Phil's been in, he's spent a long period of time, generally speaking, 3 years there or thereabouts. That tells you that he's got a good temperament, that he can manage the ups and downs. Tells you he's good at managing upwards to boardroom level as well as down to the players. And it tells you he's pretty good at setting a team up, because you can't survive the ups and downs of football unless you can prove those things. And that's what I think came across today. Someone with a very steady temperament, huge amount of belief in what they do. And hopefully, it's a very different challenge here in Sunderland in terms of the expectations and what he's taken on. But hopefully that knowledge of the division and that conviction he has in his methods is something that can produce results.
What do you think he needs to do to get results to be more win-win-win rather than win, draw, loss? What do you think needs to change in the team? Do you think it's a tactical tweak, or do the players maybe need a bit more belief?
I think the obvious answer to that is Sunderland need to be better in both boxes. Sunderland haven't kept enough clean sheets. They didn't keep enough clean sheets last season, which undermined the promotion campaign, and they've not kept any clean sheets in the league games this time. And also, while Sunderland score regularly a goal a game, or so, they need to score more goals. And I think that Phil Parkinson's shown in his previous jobs that he's capable of drilling a team, certainly defensively. He knows how to make a team more defensively tight and organised, and I think that Sunderland will really benefit from that. And obviously, whoever came in was going to need to try and find a way to get a tune out of Will Grigg, who has struggled for goals since he came in January. And if Phil Parkinson's able to do that, then that's a massive piece in the puzzle.
I mean, you mentioned goals there. I think of Naki Wells, who we had at Bradford, and he did well with him. I think about Gary Medine, who we had at Bolton. Mm-hmm. He's somebody who knows how to get his strikers playing. So could it be that the owners were looking at that going, yeah, okay, we can see that he will get Will Grigg, Charlie White, Mark McNulty more goals? Yeah,
I think it's a case of man management, isn't it? Some players you have to be strong with, other ones you have to cajole. It's horses for courses. You've got to get different approaches, work with different players. And Phil Parkinson's shown in his previous jobs that he's capable of working with a range of different players and getting the best out of them. This squad here is certainly better than the 9th place position that the club is now, and if he needs to work at least in the short term until anything can be changed in January with this group of players and get more out of them.
Phil, how do you think the role of the fans going forward, do you think that's important? Because it's fair to say there's been a debate that the fans have been negative at the stadium, which can have an impact. Do you think the fans need to go, right, let's galvanise ourselves, let's make sure we get behind this appointment?
I have no concerns whatsoever with the fans, because come Saturday, no matter what anyone thinks about this appointment, no matter what anyone thinks about Jack Ross, where the club's at, the owners, come Saturday 3 o'clock, there'll be a big following at Wycombe. Everyone will be either huddled around the radio or they'll be watching on iFollow, and everyone will be starting out desperate for Phil Parkinson to be a massive success. Whether they agreed with the appointment or not, whether they agree with anything else at the club, they'll be desperate for him to be a success. And if he can put out a team that not just works hard but plays good football, and by that I don't mean tiki-taka or Barcelona or anything like that, but purposeful football with intensity, he'll get a huge amount of backing. I've absolutely no doubt about that. And every fan come Saturday will be desperate for him to succeed, desperate to see a side that can score goals and plays with a lot of heart. And in that sense, the manager has nothing to worry about. If he can get those things out of his players and put it on the pitch, he'll be a hero up here. And hopefully the clubs he's managed in the past, he's managed in difficult circumstances, he's developed a really good spirit. Here he arguably has maybe better players at the level he's managing at that he's had before. It's a different challenge for him as a coach, as a tactician, but hopefully he can bring that blend of building a real spirit and getting the best out of the players. And if he does that, the fans will absolutely love him, and they'll all be desperate to see that on Saturday and going forward.
I mean, I think somebody was talking to me yesterday, talking about Dennis Smith coming in when we were in the 3rd division last time, and he was a 4th division manager at the time, brought him in from York. Fans were probably underwhelmed at that time, and sometimes it doesn't really work that the big name necessarily works. I think of Martin O'Neill, who came here and everyone was behind that appointment, but it didn't quite work. So, I suppose what I'm trying to say is sometimes it's not necessarily the name you look at and go, right, they're a fit. Sometimes it's just...
I think you have to be realistic as well. Who can you realistically bring in when you're in League One in the circumstances that Sunderland are, who will get fans excited and going? I mean, with the best will in the world, some of the names that were linked with the role, the likes of Sam Allardyce or a return for Roy Keane, that's not going to happen in League One. You just have to accept that. When you then look at the realistic names, the shortlist that's been fairly widely seen, I don't think that there's much difference amongst any of those names. You would look at them and say, well, I like him, and somebody else might like somebody else. But there was no name there that stood head and shoulders out in term above all the rest in terms of name recognition. What Sunderland needed was somebody, a solid and sensible choice who can perform the job, and it doesn't really matter in the broader picture whether that's a name or whether it's somebody who is simply a man with an excellent record like Phil Parkinson. I'm perfectly content with a lower profile appointment who gets results rather than somebody who's brought in on the back of their reputation. I know that there's always a big movement whenever the job is available for Kevin Phillips to come back, and I do think that one day Kevin Phillips will manage Sunderland, but whether it's the right time, whether it's the right time for him, whether it's the right time for the club to appoint somebody who hasn't managed yet, I would question that.
Wycombe this weekend, what do you think Sunderland should expect, Phil? Gareth Haynes was a manager who was linked here, of course. Last year we drew twice 1-1, and there was, it's fair to say that the game at Wycombe was quite colourful.
Yeah, I think people should expect a long 90 minutes, and the game. It's almost it's almost the ultimate League One challenge going to Wycombe. You know that the pitch is going to be tight, the atmosphere is going to be fierce. You know that Wycombe are going to make life difficult for you. They will set up to frustrate Sunderland. They will set up thinking, how can we prevent Sunderland doing what they want to do? How can we drag this game out? How can we put the pressure on them? How can we make the Sunderland players feel the pressure? And Gareth Ainsworth has proved exceptionally good at that. And also, they deserve a lot of respect for what they've done this season, because if you look at their results so far, I'm sure they've surprised a lot of people, but if you look at their numbers, their attacking numbers in terms of the chances they're creating, the shots they're getting away, even if you just look at the quality that they've brought in the summer, there's been a huge change. They've got good League One players in forward areas now, players like Paul Smith, David Wheeler, Onyi Dinma. So they'll be a threat. They'll be difficult, they'll be up for it, they'll be well set up, but they now have quality in the final third, and it might well be that we see a bit of a different side in that sense to what we saw in March. They're up there because they can score goals and create chances. So it's a massive, massive test for Phil Parkinson in his first game.
Do you think Sunderland are almost underdogs because Wycombe are second in the table, had a really good start? Do you think their fans might have an expectation that, you know what, we should be winning this game? And do you think that could work in Sunderland's favour?
Well, I think Sunderland will be expected to win every game at this level, regardless of the circumstances. Hopefully, it'll work in Sunderland's favour. There's that sense of a fresh start, if you like. I'm sure the players who were picked will be absolutely desperate to impress the new manager. They'll want to cement their places. Anyone coming off the bench will want to make an impression so that they start on Tuesday night. So that might just work in Sunderland's favour, that sense of freshness, that sense of a new beginning, and that need to impress the new manager, and they'll need that. And one of the things Phil Parkinson's spoken a lot about today at his first press conference is off the ball. You need to get it right off the ball, especially at this level. And that's going to be where the test is. The players are going to have to be very, very disciplined, very, very committed. The flip side of it is if you can go and win the game, what a fantastic start. You know, a tough away day, if you get the 3 points, you've got potential to really go and build some momentum going into a home game and beyond. So big test, equally a big opportunity.
And you mentioned the home game there against Tranmere. If we did get a positive result on Saturday, that Tuesday game against Tranmere should be one of them occasions where everyone comes together.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think, and I'm sure he will. I'm sure that regardless of the result on Saturday, Phil Parkinson will get an excellent reception on Tuesday night. But if, as you say, he came into his first home game in charge on the back of a solid performance and a win down at Wycombe, that would be the ideal scenario for him. It would be such a boost for Sunderland to win down at Wycombe, not only for the new manager but also beating a team that's riding high in the table. It would cut that gap on second place, so you would think, because Wycombe are second at present. It would be the ideal start for him. It was a scrappy, niggly game last season down at Wycombe. I think of all the games, it was the essence of League One at Adams Park, and it wasn't a game that will linger long in the memory as a football match. It was more all the other things, the red cards and everything else that went on. I think Wycombe will probably try and rattle Sunderland in the same way again, but at least this time we'll have a better idea of exactly what we're up against.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on, guys. Obviously, big week ahead. 2 huge games on Saturday and Tuesday, and then a big one again next weekend against Shrewsbury Town. Heading into another big week where we've got a cup game as well. So plenty to get stuck into for Sunderland fans over the next 2 weeks. So thanks for coming on, and fingers crossed we get that positive result.
Fingers crossed.